DNS over HTTPS causes more problems than it solves, experts say.
Oh, well, if experts say it, then it's gotta be right.
I've talked about DNS over HTTPS before. DNS is one of the last big problems we have about encrypting online. More and more messaging services are being encrypted, and our website connections are being encrypted via TLS, largely thanks to free services like Let's Encrypt. This prevents anyone other than the website you're connecting to from spying on your connection or even making changes to steal your data or put malware on your machine. DNS is the way domain names like YouTube are converted into IP addresses like 172.217.23.110. That's important for two reasons. One, who wants to remember to put 172.217.23.110 every time they want to go to YouTube? Far easier to remember youtube.com. Second, there might be multiple websites at that IP address. So we need DNS names for those reasons. And in the modern internet, we have some other considerations too. You might get a different address for YouTube in a different part of the world because they want to connect you to a closer server. All of this means we need a way of looking up DNS names to map them to IP addresses. But DNS is not encrypted. It's wide open. That means that anyone who's capable of spying on your connection, anyone in that hotel or coffee shop, or your ISP, or a tyrannical nation state, can spy on this connection and see what websites you visit. More dangerously, they can engage in what's called a DNS spoofing attack. Basically, instead of giving you the real address for YouTube.com, they can give you the address to a website they control, and they can use it to steal your password, put malware on your machine, or engage in other mischief. If it's a banking website or a crypto exchange, they can even take all of your money. They can do anything you can do on the website. And by the way, two-factor authentication will not protect you here. That protects you from password theft, not a man-in-the-middle attack. So we need to encrypt DNS, especially now that ransomware is coming back with a vengeance. It's vital to our security. In the past, there have been some proposed standards like DNSCrypt, but they haven't really seen much adoption. Finally, we're getting that with DNS over HTTPS, or DOH. It uses the same secure TLS encryption that we rely on websites to use, and since the connection is a standard HTTPS, it's easy to implement. But some people don't like it, so let's look through this propaganda piece disguised as a news article and see who these experts are and why they don't like it. Spoiler alert, they're not cybersecurity experts. The teal deer is that most experts think DOH is not good, and people should be focusing their efforts on implementing better ways to encrypt DNS traffic, such as DNS over TLS, rather than DOH. Okay, we've got an immediate problem here. Effectively, DNS over TLS and DNS over HTTPS are the same thing. Not technically, they use different ports, and HTTPS has, well, HTTPS headers that it uses, but as far as the things anyone should actually care about, they're the same. They work the same, they secure your connection the same way, so immediately something's fishy here. In fact, every single complaint this article has about DOH would also apply to DNS over TLS. The protocol itself works by changing how DNS works. Until now, DNS queries were made in plain text from an app to a DNS server, using the DNS settings of the local operating system received from its network provider, usually an internet service provider. Yeah, and that's exactly the problem! Even if you change your DNS settings to Google Server or OpenDNS or something like that, and how many people would know to change that, you're still broadcasting in the clear, and your ISP or any hacker can see it. DOH changes this paradigm. DOH encrypts DNS queries, which are disguised as regular HTTPS traffic, hence the DNS over HTTPS name. These DOH queries are sent to special DOH-capable DNS servers called DOH resolvers, which resolve the DNS query inside a DOH request and reply to the user, also in an encrypted manner. And DNS over TLS works the same way. You have a special resolver you use that supports it, and it encrypts your data. You could argue that since it isn't using HTTPS that it's a simpler protocol, and that makes it more efficient, but none of that has anything to do with the criticisms in this article. They say DOH is not the magical user privacy cure that some companies have been pushing in their marketing efforts in order to boost their image as privacy-first organizations. Smells like Nirvana fallacy. Experts in these companies are irresponsible for pushing a half-baked protocol that doesn't actually protect users and causes more problems than it fixes, especially in the enterprise sector.
Keep in mind we still don't know who these experts are.
DOH doesn't actually prevent ISP's user tracking. One of the main points that DOH supporters have been blabbing about,
oh, nice. Yeah, no bias or poisoning the well here,
in the past year is that DOH prevents ISPs from tracking users' DNS requests, and hence prevents them from tracking users' web traffic habits. Yes, DOH prevents the ISP from viewing a user's DNS request. However, DNS is not the only protocol involved in web browsing. There are still countless other data points that ISPs could track to know where a user is going.
That's true, but it's also true of DNS over TLS or any other solution. The fact that a solution designed to secure DNS doesn't secure things other than DNS is not any kind of criticism. It's a bit like saying anti-lock brakes are bad because it doesn't protect you from hurricanes.
If a user is accessing a website loaded via HTTP, using DOH is pointless.
Yeah, but again, fewer and fewer sites are using HTTP, thanks again to Let's Encrypt and other organizations dedicated to making web encryption universal. According to the most recent monthly report from SSL Labs, almost 70% of the web is now fully secured. The remainder is not solely HTTP websites, but HTTPS sites that are running older protocols or aren't set up right or whatever. Only 6.7% of sites received a failing grade, meaning that they weren't using encryption, or at least might as well not have been. So what these guys are saying is, since 6.7% of the web isn't encrypted, there's no point in encrypting the DNS queries of the other 93.3%. Can anyone take this argument seriously?
Experts say that ISPs won't be inconvenienced by DOH at all because they can easily look at these HTTPS portions that are not encrypted, such as SNI fields and OCSP connections. Furthermore, ISPs know everything about everyone's traffic anyway. By design, they can see to what IP address the user is connecting when accessing a website.
Again, they're saying it's bad because it won't encrypt things that aren't DNS, which is idiotic. But remember this claim. ISPs won't be inconvenienced by DNS over HTTPS. It'll be important later.
DOH bypasses enterprise policies. The second main talking point is DOH's impact on the enterprise sector, where system administrators use local DNS queries and DNS-based software to filter and monitor local traffic, to prevent users from accessing non-work-related sites and malware domains.
And by later, I mean right now. Right on the heels of saying that DOH doesn't prevent monitoring of DNS, he makes the claim that organizations won't be able to monitor DNS. As if we wouldn't notice. There are perfectly good reasons why organizations would want to monitor and filter these requests within their networks, but there's an important difference between these enterprise networks and the home user who seems to be completely ignored in this article. The enterprise networks ostensibly know what they're doing. We need security by default to protect everyone so that the people who don't know how to set the proper settings or don't even know they need to set things properly will automatically be secured. As for corporate networks, it's up to the IT department to determine everything that's running on their computers and on the network. And they need to be blocking services at the firewall so they won't run, and you can block DOH at the firewall. It's not even that difficult. And in case you're thinking I'm putting too much onus on these poor IT people, and I've heard whining from lots of IT people about how this will make their job harder, well, guess what? I used to work in IT. I know how hard the job is. That's why you get paid the big bucks. You're supposed to know what settings are in browsers that need to be changed and what firewall filters need to be implemented based on your organization's security needs. You do not get to sacrifice the security of everyone's home connection just because you're too lazy to do your job. And that's all that needs to be said about this section.
DOH weakens cybersecurity. Oh, for the love of Mike. Many experts say the protocol upends hundreds of cybersecurity solutions, which will become useless once users begin using DOH inside their browsers, blinding security tools from seeing what users are doing.
The thing is, and I've covered this before, those security tools work by breaking the web security model, and we've seen case after case after case where users have been hacked and had accounts and even identities stolen because of these cybersecurity solutions.
What these so-called solutions really do is increase the attack surface, making you more vulnerable to connection hijacking attacks and even a lot of zero-click attacks. These utilities should not be used. Use the ones built into your operating system or your web browser. Do not use these third-party utilities. And this section keeps going on to talk about organizational controls, which I just covered when I refuted the previous section. Again, an organization's IT department needs to exercise 100% control over what's running on their machines. And there are ways to enforce this. But again, this is about making the home user secure from things they don't know how to secure themselves against and may not even know they need to secure themselves against. Again, you do not get to throw all of them on the fire just because you don't want to do your job. DOH helps criminals. Oh, you knew this was coming, didn't you? And guess what they're mentioning? The old standby, online child sexual abuse, citing experts in the British Parliament and GCHQ, which is Britain's version of the NSA. They reiterate the same arguments of the going dark crowd that I've covered ad nauseum. Oh, but what was that point I told you to remember earlier? They won't be inconvenienced by DOH? So, which is it? Either they'll be able to see what people are doing, or they won't. Make up your mind! DOH shouldn't be recommended to dissidents. And another major issue that most security experts have with DOH, citation needed, are the recent claims that it can help those living in oppressive countries. And why not? This is because DOH does not protect users from tracking. As it was explained above, DOH only hides DNS traffic, but everything else is still visible. Can anyone say straw man? It's not about stopping tracking, which as they've already pointed out can be done a bunch of different ways, but about censorship. But does this article say one word about oppressive regimes and how they censor the web? Of course not. And by the way, notice how we've neatly morphed right back to the claim that DOH won't be an impediment to them. So DOH is bad because it prevents tracking, and it's bad because it doesn't prevent tracking. Instead, experts like Zaire and PowerDNS recommend that users in oppressive countries use DOH-capable apps in combination with Tor or VPNs rather than using DOH alone. Telling people they can fully rely on DOH is just misleading. What's misleading is you pretending anyone is saying that people can fully rely on DOH. But your point is not that DOH isn't everything you need to secure your network. Your claim is that it shouldn't be used at all, and your own experts are saying that it should. DOH centralizes DNS traffic at a few DOH resolvers. This one is completely friggin' stupid. You have been warned. The biggest critic of this move has been the Asia Pacific Network Information Center, APNIC, which in a blog post this week criticized the idea of sending DOH traffic to a few DOH resolvers rather than using the existing ecosystem of DNS servers. So the way DNS works is that it actually is pretty centralized. You have a number of root servers run by IANA, the Internet Assigned Numbers Authority. That in turn forwards your request onto various providers based on the top-level domain. For example, .com domains are sent on to Network Solutions. From there, the specific domain request is sent on to the website's hosting provider. None of that is what DNS over HTTPS is all about. This is just about the server that you connect to in order to perform this series of lookups. There are a lot of advantages to this, mostly being that you can connect to a server near you instead of having to connect to several different servers all over the world. They can also cache entries so that if you request a domain lookup that someone else did recently, they can go ahead and send you the result instead of having to take the time to look it up all over again. What this guy is saying is that somehow DOH makes this process more centralized. I guess because there aren't that many DOH servers right now? By the way, so far, none of their experts are recognized cybersecurity experts. Funnily enough, they're all people who have something to lose or work for people with something to lose. They're competing DNS providers, or government agencies, or DNS lookup companies. Aside from the ones whose arguments are completely taken out of context or applied in a way that they shouldn't be, are making arguments that are just moronic. Centralized DOH is currently a privacy net negative, since anyone that could see your metadata could still see your metadata when DNS is moved to a third party, APNIC said. Additionally, that third party gets a complete log per device of all DNS queries in a way that can even be tracked across IP addresses. Look, Either way, you're going to have to trust whoever you're connecting to. But encrypted DNS solutions actually give us a benefit in this regard. For example, Simple DNS Crypt for Windows, which supports both the older DNS Crypt protocol and DNS over HTTPS, has a number of different services it connects to securely, and will choose a different one each time based on connectivity. You can also specify that you want to use servers that don't log the results. I don't know of any ISP that gives that guarantee. And if this really is an issue, then it wouldn't be hard to add in a round-robin option to make sure you select a different one each time. By the way, Simple DNS Crypt is open source, so you can see exactly what they're up to, unlike your ISP. There's another setting that's important here because very few ISPs use it, the ability to only use servers that support DNSSEC. This is a secure protocol that makes sure you're getting the real DNS entry and not one that's been spoofed by a hacker. It does require the DNS zone file on the site's hosting provider to have implemented it, and there's still a long way to go for total adoption, but at least you can have that security for the sites that have already implemented it. And by the way, if you're using Cloudflare's, Google's, or Quad9's DOH resolver, or indeed most of the other available ones, it's using DNSSEC as well. So you'll get that benefit that your ISP's DNS resolver is almost certainly not giving you. Notice how this guy doesn't even mention DNSSEC and the issues surrounding it. Encrypting DNS is good, but if this could be done without involving additional parties, that would be better, Apnick added. Look, the whole reason why we are having to involve additional parties is because ISPs won't do it. That's what you have to remember. Right now, ISPs are doing nothing to solve any of the issues they're bringing up. DOH at least solves some of them. But Kim Panu says that this means it's bad to implement it somehow. By the way, if it's centralization you're worried about, how about the fact that something like 1 out of 10 Americans are on Comcast? Is their DNS service centralized? But less than 9% of Americans are on Firefox, but then putting in DNS over HTTPS makes it all centralized. Yeah, right. The bottom line is, his experts were either people who claim that DOH isn't as secure as VPN or Tor, which is correct, whose statements he misused to make his attack on DOH, or they're people with a bias, competing services, or spy organizations who don't want users going dark. There wasn't even an attempt at balance here. He didn't talk to anyone on the pro-DOH side to get a refutation or arguments in favor of it to make the claim that they outweigh the downsides. He didn't even talk to a single person who's an actual cybersecurity expert. So you'll all excuse me if I write this off as just another example of clickbait propaganda. Oh well, I hope you enjoyed how this article made me blow my top. If you did, please share the video and hit like, subscribe, and the bell, or by subscribing over on bittubers.com, where videos are always monetized and never censored. And please support this channel by going to donate.bogosity.tv, where you can make a one-time gift using PayPal or crypto, or become a regular supporter and get the videos early and ad-free. Until next time, stay strong and be free.